Mark Cuban went from being fired from his first job at a computer store because his boss was upset that he closed a sale instead of opening up the shop, that business soon went under, to becoming the billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks with an estimated net worth of $4.3 billion. Here's my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
The thing about no matter what you're doing, whether you're trying to be a bartender and learning drinks, whether you're a sales rep, whether you're a programmer, whether you're a consultant, whatever it may be, information now is available to everybody. And the common phrase, knowledge is power. And acquiring that knowledge is just effort. Going out and connecting to people and learning is just effort. And the one thing, I have all these stupid sayings that, but the one thing in life that you can control is your effort. And that's 99% of the time. That's the difference between being successful and not being successful. Who worked a little bit harder? When you walk into a room to sell something or to be sold or to try to understand something or to deal with a problem with your kids or whatever it may be, education, who worked harder? That's typically, who worked harder at learning, that's typically going to be the person who has the advantage in the situation. Because we've all walked into situations where we weren't as prepared as we would have liked to be, or we thought we were and somebody knew more. That's the king. The one thing in life each and every person in this room can control from now to evermore is your effort.
Rule number 2, be relentless.
What is your one personal characteristic that has helped you most in your entrepreneurial journey?
I'd say 2. 1, I'm super competitive. I hate to lose. And 2, I'm relentless. I'm the guy. I remember my first company, Micro Solutions, I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and we did system integration, and I wrote software. I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and that ribs I would just eat as I would write software, and I'd be there, and all of a sudden it'd be 36 hours later, or I'd lose track of days just because I just get so focused and so involved in it. That's what I do, and I still, I read the Hadoop manual and learned a little bit about Pig Latin, and I just want to keep up, right? And so that's probably my biggest strength.
Rule number 3, be paranoid in business.
I always say, for every one of my businesses, I say, what would I do to kick my own ass? Right? So whatever business you have, there's somebody trying to put you out of business. There's somebody trying to take a bite out of your business, and it's better for you to figure out how they're going to do it rather than they do it. And so, that's being paranoid. And so you have to be paranoid. You have to anticipate other people's next moves, and you can't ever, downplay the competition. I was I was at a business plan competition this morning at a college, and they were kind of being dismissive of the competition. And so you can't ever do that. They're out there trying to take you down, and they're not just going to sit still. And if you're good, really, really good, you're going to inspire them to work even harder, faster, better. And so you have to be, very self-aware of what you're good at and what other people are good at. And, a healthy dose of paranoia makes a big difference, is very helpful.
Rule number 4, always be nice.
You were a successful entrepreneur before you bought the Maverick and become an owner. What common element do you see in, running a successful business versus running a successful sports team?
Effort. I've always said the one thing in life you can control is your effort. A lot of people, like we were just saying, a lot of people like to talk and don't like to do the work. I think salesmanship. There's never been a company that succeeded that doesn't have sales. You have to have a product that people want. You have to be nice to your customers. I think nice is underrated. I wasn't always this way, but I think over the last 10, 12 years, I've realized that just by being nice, you get a lot better results, and people tend to want to work with you a whole lot more. So I've recognized that sometimes a smile and just chilling out a little bit goes a long way.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, do memorable things.
One of the attitude I got from my dad was, when you're older and you look back at your life, what will be the things that you remember? And think about that when you say yes or no to doing something that's really bizarre or really interesting. And so I've tried to take that attitude, whether it was, buying the Mavs or doing Dancing with the Stars, or if you really want to see me embarrass myself, and look, I have no problem embarrassing myself, as all my friends will tell you, but if it's something different and it's just something bizarre and interesting, I'll do it. So if you turn to TNT tonight, there's a show called Drop the Mic, and you'll see me rap. And I am the world's worst rapper, but it was so much fun. And so, when I'm 90 years old and I look back and say, should I have done Drop the Mic and rapped and looked like an idiot? Hell yes. Hell yes, right? Because I got this unique experience where this professional rapper taught me how to rap, and they gave me all this stuff, and I got to, battle with Rusev, this guy who wrestles for WWE, who's like 5'8" and 400 pounds of muscle, and who threatened to kick my ass in our little battle. So it was fun.
Rule number 6, ask the right questions.
Do you think, let's just say if we put 10 guys here, you interview them, okay? You could, within a 5-10 minute interview, say, this dude's not going to make it as an entrepreneur. Could you pretty much know that?
I'm not very good at interviewing. The issue is my interview skills more than,
really?
I'm horrible at it.
Isn't Shark Tank interviewing though?
Well, yeah, it is, but I get to do due diligence after the fact, right? So I get to play my hunches, but I get to check. Yeah, I mean, I can typically tell, right? I can tell but by their passion. I can tell by their focus. I can tell by their preparation. There's a whole realm of things in any business. Here's the business you're in, and here's 1,000 things that influence whether or not you're going to be successful. And really, to me, by through my experience in businesses, I can put myself in his position and say, okay, here are 900 of the 1,000 things he has to be aware of, and then go through and ask. And by how many of those or her issues they've been able to address already, that kind of gives me a sense of how hard they're willing to work. And I can tell by the questions they ask me. So all I have to do is say, okay, what do you want to know? And, when they start saying, what should I do?
They ask you.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? And I want them to ask questions, but, people like to say, the only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask, and that's not right? Because the questions you ask tell whoever more about you than anything else you do. Because in particular, it tells me about your preparation. If you ask me questions about just basic things that you should have known and you should have down to a science, that's going to disqualify you almost more than anything.
Rule number 7, make more content.
In terms of content, there's never too much content. There's just, because what we want and who we are and how we consume content changes every day through our experiences. The challenge of content isn't can you make it or is there too much. The challenge of content, whether it's business content, the proposals you make, what you put on your website, how you connect to people, is can you tell a good story? And now storytelling has evolved. It used to be we all congregated around the TV and there were 250 channels, but it was the best alternative to boredom. You come home, you're worn out, you sit there, one hand goes in the pants, the other hand goes on the beer, and you watch TV. Now, all the content comes to us. No matter where we are, there's a source of content, and who we are and how old we are and our experiences, that defines what we like. Just go to Twitch. Like I have a 9-year-old son who plays Fortnite all day, every day, if we would let him, right? And he'll watch Ninja. Now, Ninja is I don't know if you all know who he is. He's a big guy on Twitch that streams Fortnite games. And he came to the Mavs practice facility one day because we got to be friends just through random sources. He was a bigger star than when Tom Hanks came to visit. And this is a guy on Twitch. Now, Twitch has unlimited options of content related to gaming and other things, and they're expanding. YouTube, obviously, just unlimited content. And it's not like YouTube's struggling. Where the takeaway from all this is when there's so many options for content, as business people, you have to figure out how to connect with people. You have to know your audience, and you have to know how to tell a story. And honestly, that's not my strength. I literally, and I forget the name of the book, I'd have to look at my phone, I'm reading a book on storytelling. Because that's how people connect. We have so many choices. If you can't absorb us with something that engages us, a story, and simplify it into a story that we want to connect with, the next person is going to come in and take your business.
Rule number 8, ignore what others think.
My best mistake, that's a great question. Probably buying the Mavs. Everybody told me I was an idiot. And
Why?
Just because we were the worst team in all professional sports. And that's what everybody said. And I had paid the highest price for a sports team up until that point. And everybody said I was a moron. The second thing, the other time was when we sold to Yahoo, it was for 28 million shares of stock. And I immediately collared my stock to protect it on the downside. Now, this was not when the internet stock market was cratering. It was still going up, right? And so I collared my stock, meaning I didn't really share in much of the gains going up, and there was a limit to the gains I shared. And Yahoo stock immediately went up 30%. And I remember going on CNBC, and they said, don't you feel bad about losing? You know, it's gone up another 80 points, and you'd be worth another $700 million. And I was like, it's tough to feel bad when you're sitting on your G5 watching CNBC, you know? But yeah, so collaring my stock, everybody thought was a big mistake because they thought the market was going to keep on going up, and that's not how it turned out.
Rule number 9, study the basics.
If you're going to have and run a business, if you don't understand accounting, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Can't you hire a guy that knows how to run
But then
accounting?
they still have to communicate to you, right? I mean, there's people that don't understand the concept of, you know, the difference between profits and cash. You know, oh, your accountant might tell you you're profitable, but your cash is going down. You know, not understanding a breakdown. And when you don't,
Do you think you need college to learn that?
yeah, I think you do, right? Because it may not, for some people, look, if you're so self-motivated that you can take an online course in accounting and teach yourself everything, you're way ahead of the game anyways. But most people aren't. And I'm not saying you have to go to Indiana. I'm not saying go to an expensive school. I don't care if you go to a community college and take accounting and spend $99 for the class. Just, you know, spending the money forces you to be more obligated to do it. But accounting, finance, lesser extent marketing, sales, if the school offers that, these are all that's the language of business. And so while it's possible to teach yourself these things, and while it's possible to hire them, when you're starting your own company, you don't want to have to spend money hiring an accountant, right? You're already probably going to have to hire a lawyer to set up your. Well, let me tell you that if you've gone through all these classes, you probably don't have to hire a lawyer to incorporate, right? You can probably figure out yourself. And so your cost of opening up a business drops. But even more important than all that, that's the blocking and tackling. That's the language of business. You know, the thing I learned at Indiana that was more important than anything else, I learned how to learn. And learning became far more important to me because the one certainty in business is that it's always going to be changing. If you're not always learning, to this minute, if I'm not continuously learning, if I'm not just absorbing as much as I can absorb, someone else is going to kick my ass.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is enjoy life.
Would you tell us what do you think is next for you?
I just have fun, you know? Somebody's got to be the luckiest guy in the world, and I think it's me, you know? And I don't want to look back and say, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do Dancing with the Stars? Why didn't I do Shark Tank? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I just want to experience it and experience with my family and, you know, and just compete and have fun and learn and just see where life takes me. I don't have like, here's the one more thing I have to do or here's the bucket list thing I have to do. Every day of my life's a bucket list, you know? And I mean, I just want to enjoy it.
We all are entrepreneurs or wonder if we're entrepreneurs at heart. You know, we all have that idea inside of us. We've all been through it. Oh, I got this idea. It's a great idea. You know, and you get all excited. You get that feeling in your stomach, right? And then you go to Google and you Google, oh, there's nobody else doing this. Ah! Then you call your friends. You go, what do you think? What do you think? Oh, that is really cool. I'd buy one. You know, and then most people stop. You know, what's for dinner? But some people, they found their way to turn those into companies, and they found their way onto Shark Tank. And we got to see examples of people from any little town and anywhere in the country with backgrounds that weren't from some big Ivy League school. Maybe you didn't go to college at all. Maybe it was their last dollar and they started it up and they were desperate to get an investment, but they started it. And we showed examples of people who were willing to take that first step and start that company and where it could go. And I think that really, and to this day, really excites people and encourages them and really shows them that there can be an upside. And on the flip side,
there can be failure too. And so you have to be realistic about what can happen. Amazon's the world's greatest startup. Netflix is the world's greatest
Which makes it harder to innovate. If you were
I think you
Mark
can still kick their
Cuban,
ass. Starting all over again, I still think you can kick their ass, right?
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think on the margin, you can't, even at that scale, even with all the AI that they both use, there's still on the margin places to make money where they're inefficient. Because it's still vertical and it still takes time to get to the edges. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities for small companies to come in. And you're seeing a lot of that now. Like you see growth hacks on Kickstarter, where I have one of my companies, a Shark Tank company, that all they do, their whole entire business now is just releasing products on Kickstarter, delivering them, and then going on to the next product.
okay.
And it's just a pure growth hack. There's other companies that they measure what's selling the best on Amazon. And then they go out and buy those products, brand them, and sell just on Amazon. And buy Amazon, it's just its own little ecosystem where kids are, I try to give this kid some money, right? Literally, because he was so good at it. Didn't need it. He was already making, $1 million a year, working an hour a day just by tracking Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just, so you can be smart because they're so big. We just sold a company out of Atlanta that went on Shark Tank as Cycloramic. They had the iPhone that used the buzzer, and you ran this app on it, and it just turned around and did a panoramic version of the phone, took panoramic pictures. Well, they changed the format of the iPhone, which is great. This is a great lesson for entrepreneurs, right? So this guy came in with this really cool app, worked with an iPhone 5, and it just turned around and take panoramic pictures, and then stitch them together, and it was a cool picture. Well, so I give him $250,000, I think, for 20% of the company or 25% of the company. Not 4 months later, Apple changes the iPhone. And it's got this like rounded thing underneath, and we're like, oh, what are we gonna do? But the guy was smart. And one of the things I always look for companies coming in is, what's your unique advantage? What is the one thing you have that differentiates you from other companies? And for this guy, the product was interesting, but as I said on the show, the ability to program video and use what became computer vision was a unique skill that was hard to find. And so we worked with him and actually worked with him to bring in another CEO. And they used that same technology to be able to scan cars. So now if you go to websites like Carvana to buy a car, and you see how you can turn the car around just right there, that started with their software. And the guy's name is Bruno. So Bruno, we just sold his company for $22.5 million a couple weeks ago. And so I walked away with 25% of that. So I was like, yeah, Shark Tank.
What I advise people, when I sat down to make a decision, my goal always was, I wanted to retire by the time I was 35, right? Period, end of story. And I sold my first company, Micro Solutions, and I was gonna be willing to live like a student. I was 20, I just turned 30, I guess. And I bought a lifetime pass in American Airlines and just partied like a rock star. I was getting up with as many people as I possibly could and going to as many countries as much as I could and loving life. And that was my goal, right? And then came back and started buying and selling stocks, made another $25 million, whatever, crushing it. Then we started AudioNet, and I financed it out of my pocket till we got big enough where we wanted strategics. And again, on one hand, we were doing 1 million people a day coming in doing multimedia in 1998. 1999. We were doing, when we sold to Yahoo, our last quarter, I think we did 23 million in revenue in $1999, right? So
on the internet.
On the internet, yeah, right. All just on the internet, right?
Those were people paying you to do webcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking the things that we created back then that if I would have patented, it would have been a different world. Pre-roll ads, we started that. Pop-up ads, we called them guaranteed click-through, we started that. Multicast distribution, all kinds of stuff, different ways of connecting servers, writing software around, all kinds of shit. But in my mind, it wasn't about, I wanted to create this huge company. I remember telling our employees, we're gonna change, I want to be the next Ted Turner. I want to just change television. I want to change media. I want all media to be driven online, that it's going to be crazy to think that there aren't going to be more choices online than there are TV. People are going to upload user-generated content, and that's going to change the world, and not the world, the country. I wasn't thinking that big. But more important to me then was my personal freedom, right? The one thing my dad has always driven to me, the one thing you can't own is time.
you know, and the one thing you can't get back is time. And while the part of me wanted an amazing world-class company, a bigger part of me just wanted to see the world, you know, and just experience the world and just love life and just enjoy life. And that was more important to me, and that's what the money enabled. And that's why that's why I hedged my stock. I didn't need more, I just wanted more time, you know, because that was everything to me. And so when I talk to entrepreneurs, you have to make a decision what's important to you. Time to go out and do whatever, be whoever you are, help whoever you want to help, raise your family, whatever it is, or do you want to create a world-class company? What is your goal? And you have to understand your goals, and there should always be a price. You know, if it is about selling at some point, what's the price?
The other thing is when people get some momentum, they want to all of a sudden go big, right? Particularly that's kind of a .com thing. Let's buy our customers, raise a ton of money. Well, one of my buddies, Howard Tullman, says it best. He goes, you got to nail it before you scale it. If your company doesn't work, making it big won't solve your problems. It'll just add to your problems.
I focus on things that are AI driven, artificial intelligence driven, whether it's machine learning, deep learning neural networks, medical applications. But within AI is a buzzword that everybody's using right now. You know, and to that point, you know, we as old guys, we go back and it's like 1995, we talk about the internet. And I would say to people back in 1995, look, if you don't understand the internet, you're not going to be able to do business. And now that's just blocking and tackling, it seems obvious. Back then it wasn't, right? I could even take you further back to my first company. You know, what we did, it was a company called Micro Solutions, and we did local area networks and wide area networks. And I used to walk into companies and say, you're gonna have to hook these PCs together at some point. That'll make you more productive, more effective, you know, give you a competitive advantage. And people were like, nah, I'll just carry this floppy from this PC to that PC. Yeah, okay. But today, we're at the same type of inflection point with artificial intelligence. You don't have to be an expert and be able to put together your own neural network. You know, you don't have to know what weights and biases are. But you have to have more than just a cursory understanding. Just like you have to know the difference between, you know, different types of websites, and you have to understand e-commerce if you're in e-commerce. You have to have a cursory understanding of how apps work. You're going to have at least, if not more, cursory understanding of artificial intelligence, because it will change everything we do. And if the internet was 10x in terms of change to business, artificial intelligence will be 100x or more. So there's going to be a disruption and change in the types of jobs. That's going to impact your customers. That's going to impact your businesses. That's going to impact the future of business. And so I don't want to be, you know, I want to be as clear and as forceful as I possibly can, because as fellow entrepreneurs, we always have to try to look for an edge. We always have to understand how our industry is changing. We always have to understand not only how we differentiate ourselves in our companies, but I always want to know who can kick my ass, right? In all my businesses, who can kick my ass, and can I kick my own ass first? Because if you can disrupt yourself first, the person who could otherwise do it is not going to do it, and you can compete and be successful. So pay attention to AI, it's important. If you go to my house, right next to my bed, there's a book, Machine Learning for Dummies. If you go into my bathroom, there's deep neural networks for dummies, right? If you go in, there's a something for dummies in every room of my house, you know. It can go two ways, I know, but I'm just telling you, put the time. I mean, I've taken, you know, I can't even tell you how many hours now I spend every week, if not daily, working. Like I'll go onto Amazon, AWS, and go through their machine learning tutorials. Don't think to yourself, I'm not technical enough, or I'm not going to get this, or I don't get into this, or it's too much. Try it. Get as far as you can, because it's like doing a basic website and a little bit of HTML. Just having done that, you feel smarter and you feel a little bit more confident about this. You know, I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'm trying to scare the hell out of you because it's important.
You talked about companies having a unique advantage. Can you speak more on that for me, please?
Sure. I mean, what is it that a customer can get from you that they can't get from anybody else? And you have to be very careful with that too. When I just talked about lying to yourself as an entrepreneur, because often we'll say, well, it's just like Uber, but it has pink cars. Uber doesn't have pink cars. That's a difference without a distinction, right? Lots of times people get confused between what's a product and what's a feature. Pink Uber cars, that's a feature. That's not a unique product. Excuse me. So you have to know what it is that you do that is so unique, your potential customers say, whoa, I did not know that. As opposed to, well, let me go tell Uber that they should probably add pink cars. Because whenever you're competing with, all of you are going to compete with Amazon at some point, if you're not already. Just the reality. And so you've got to understand, when Amazon starts looking at my customer base, what is it that I can convey to them that makes me unique? And that's what I meant by unique difference. If you come up with an idea where you say, I can make dollar bills for 50 cents, would you go out and raise money, or would you just go out and sell it? You just go out and do it, and that's what you have to do. And look, we all go through that fear factor of, do I quit my job? Can I do this? Can I do this, and what happens next? The one thing I know with 100% certainty, and what I would tell myself is, if I can sell and become a better and better salesperson and be great at selling, I'm always going to be successful whether I'm working for myself or if the company that I started just didn't work. I'll give you an example. Out of Indiana, before I went down to Dallas, I needed to start something. And I decided that everybody drank milk, and I found this product, powdered milk, that was cheaper, and everybody needed to save money. And I was going to go out there and sell it because it was cheaper. Now, it didn't taste quite as good. And so but I went out there to try to sell it. Failed miserably. But I learned how to make the sales effort even when things weren't going right. I learned that the rejection was, every no got me closer to a yes. That not every product was perfect, but I could take those same skills, even in failure, and translate them. So that what I learned selling garbage bags door to door, what I learned from selling powdered milk that was awful, what I learned from selling local area networks at Micro Solutions, all those things accumulated, and I got better at selling. So I always knew, people always say to me, if you lost everything, what would you do? I can sell. I can sell. And it's not about selling ice to Eskimos. It's not about, convincing people to do this. Selling is always about helping. Selling is always about understanding the person you're talking to and what their needs are. And if someone can help me make my life easier, yeah. People, now with employees, people always say, well, what's the definition of a great employee? Someone who can reduce the stress of those around them. And it's the same thing. What's the definition of a great salesperson? Someone who can reduce the stress of their salespeople. And if in looking at your company and looking at your life and looking at your goals, if you're able to go out there and recognize that whether it works or doesn't work, you're putting yourself in a position where you're helping somebody, not convincing somebody, and you're reducing their stress, you're gonna be okay. It's going to work out. And that's the confidence I've built in myself that wasn't necessarily always there. But I learned that if I try to help, if I reduce people's stress, good things can happen.
Now I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did. AI plus new types of chipsets plus 5G is going to change things far more than we've ever seen anything change. And understanding where and how to apply it is going to be critical, but just as important, knowing how to segregate and separate the bullshit, right, is as important, because every email y'all are about to send me is going to say, I have this AI solution and we're using algorithms. Yeah, of course you are, right? And then what? What really makes you different? What really sets you apart? But if I didn't do that work, if I didn't sit down and do the AWS machine learning tutorials, if I didn't go on YouTube and take, the NYU Introduction to Neural Networks or whatever, I'm not going to know it, I'm not going to be able to apply it, and I'm not going to be able to be first. And that's fun. That's fun. Knowing I get to kick the ass of some 22-year-old NYU graduate, that's awesome. I grew up, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did odd jobs. My mom, when I was in high school, was worried about whether or not I could have a career and, made sure she hooked me up with a family friend to learn how to lay carpet because she wanted me to know a trade just in case things didn't pan out, if and when I went to college. So yeah, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is destiny and, my parents are going to hook me up or, I knew this was going to happen. It was, who the hell knows what's going to happen, but I was all in for wherever direction it went.
What is your thing, and when did you kind of understand what it was?
It hasn't changed. My thing is learning whatever's new and applying it in ways that other people aren't thinking of. And so when I got fired from a job selling software, started a company, and within 6 months, this was the early days of PCs, I recognized that, okay, we need to connect PCs together. Back then, you walked around and you had your 5.25-inch floppy, and who would need to connect a PC? We started, writing software for local area networks, became a systems integrator, $30-some million run rate, and sold it to H&R Block. And then got to the internet. Okay, let's look at this internet thing. Someone's going to need to put audio and then video on there. Great. And then after Yahoo did Yahoo, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at these big screen TVs that cost $30,000 that are high definition television sets. And I'm thinking, you know what? Eventually they're going to follow the price performance curve of traditional consumer electronics. And they're going to come down in price. So I started the first all high definition TV network called HDNet. Then I'm looking and saying, okay, you know what? It's like 2006, 2007, and traditional television and cable is going digital. I'm saying, you know what? There's going to be a lot of storage space and first access digital space that cable companies aren't used to using. So let's take a movie production company that we created and let's make it available for day and date distribution where people will pay $20 to the cable company to watch this brand new movie and we get to keep 10 of it. And so we had 2929 Productions. We started producing movies. And lo and behold, the first movie we created was a documentary called Enron, the Smartest Guys in the Room. Got nominated for Academy Award. Then we didn't really create any good ones after that. But by being first leveraging digital storage, we were able to take advantage and make a lot of money. And in the NBA with the Mavericks, just doing those types of things. And it's what I like to do now. The same thing I told myself, the same thing I tell everybody. One, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, right? You don't have to figure it out right now. Don't try, right? You spend all this money, paying to learn. Now it's your chance to get paid to learn. You don't need the perfect job. You just need to go somewhere where you'll learn and start to be exposed to different ideas. And now it's not like, when Greg 40 years ago was graduating.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And me 5 years ago, it was like, get a career. And, the pressure was, get a career, go work for IBM or General Motors and get a pension. Those days are gone. People can't even pay their pensions anymore. And so you're a free agent. And you're always going to be a free agent on the market. You guys are the Kevin Durant's and LeBron James, where you're always out there and can go find a better situation for yourself. Do what's best for you. What have you got to lose? Like when I started my company, after I got fired by Michael Umecki, what was good? How bad could it be? I would lose my Motel 6 towel, It was just like, what have you got to lose? And yeah, I understand there's pressure from student loans, and there's a lot of conversations we can have there, right? But, you can get a job that doesn't have to be perfect. You can learn at that job, and you guys have the pedigree, you have the brains, you have the initiative to go out and try the next job, The good news is the economy's good enough that it may not be perfect, but you can go job to job. Don't look for the perfect answer. Just look to get the experience, look to learn, because all these different exposures, all the different things you learn, learning how to learn, that's what's going to get you excited and juice you for something that you love. Because once you find something you love to do, that's when the magic happens. Because when you're able to find something you love to do, then you can start focusing on, how can I be great at this? And like Greg found out he was a great networker. I like to, play with technology and try to do things first. Whatever it is that you find about yourself, then you can try to be great at it. And it's rare when people quit things they're great at. And so trying those things, so that's how I advise people. Don't stress, just go out and try different things.
I get that question all the time. So what industry should I look at? I can tell you all about artificial intelligence, computer vision, personalized medicine, but then what, right? And so, and maybe you're an expert in one of those fields and you can go for it. But what I tend to try to tell people in terms of what does it take to be successful, find something you love to do and then be great at it. Not average, not marginal, not good enough, but if you can be great at it, be great at it. If you are the greatest videographer in the history of videographers, people don't care about cell phones. What is it that you can do that makes them know that the way you do it is special? And if you can do that and convey it, then you'll be fine. If you're not sure, then you've got to decide whether you want to stay on your own, be a contractor or go work for somebody. It just depends. And let me add one other thing. I crushed myself, and like my brothers didn't. They took a completely different path, and they were looking just 9 to 5 at yada yada. Not everybody's got to be an entrepreneur. And so if you've got it in your blood and that's what you want to do, then find a way to be great. And if not, you'll figure it out. You'll find something else.
When I got to Dallas, I was a bartender at night, and I moved in. One of my buddies from Indiana said, "You got to come to Dallas." And I'm like, "I'm there." My car would only get so far. It had a Fiat X19 with a hole in the floorboard that guzzled oil every 60 miles. And I went down there, and there's a place called The Village. It's was the world's largest apartment complex. We had 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment. I didn't have my own room. I didn't have my own drawer. I didn't have my closet. I had a pile, and I had one ratty towel that I stole from Motel 6. And that was it. And so I was looking for my career, got a job at a software store. And I was, didn't have a tech background, so I was teaching myself all this. Because the way I look at tech is somebody invents it, and everybody else is tied for second place in the ability to learn it. And if I work harder and faster to really dive in, even if it means reading the manual, just diving in, then I can get a head start.
How old were you during
I was 24. And so sleeping on the floor, working in a software company, learning, getting better at what I was doing. And then one day, because I was dying to get out of that rat hole that I lived in, I had a chance to go out and close a sale that would have got me a $1,500 commission. And so I went to my boss, his name is Michael Humecki, and I said, "Boss, one of my responsibilities was to sweep the floor, wipe down the windows, and open the door to open the store. I got the sale. You got to let me close the sale." He goes, "No, you got to be in here to open the store." And I'm like, "Michael, no." So I made the executive decision to go out, pick up the check, thinking if I hand this guy a $15,000 check, of course he's going to change his mind. Fired me on the spot. And so here I was, living in a shithole, excuse my French, just this ratty place with a Motel 6 towel, sorry, Motel 6, and really didn't know how I was going to get out. But I decided, okay, I'm a lousy employee. I went to one of the companies that I'd been talking to, Architectural Lighting, and I said, "Look, I need $500 to be able to buy the software you want, and I promise you that even if it doesn't work, I will wash your car, I will walk your dog, I don't care what it is, I will do whatever it takes to make it up to you." And they gave me the $500, and that allowed me to create Micro Solutions. And 6 months later, I was out of the rat hole, and my company turned into a real company, and that's the one I sold for $6 million when I was 29, 30 years old. There's nothing that AI won't impact. As big as having been around a while, I saw the impact of PCs, then I saw the impact of local area networks, then I saw the impact of wide area networks, then I saw the impact of the internet, then I saw the impact of mobile, then I saw the impact of wireless. Now I'm seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, and it dwarfs any of those things. And if I don't understand how to apply it to my businesses, I remember selling PCs and software and walking in saying, "You don't need to use that pen and paper on a notepad or a ledger pad. Now we're going to give you a spreadsheet, and by the way, here's a spreadsheet that costs $495, and I had to pay to go get trained on how to sell it," which is crazy now when you think about it. But then we said, okay, now you can play what if. Then we said you can connect these PCs. Unless I understood the technology, how was I going to explain it? How was I going to understand it? Unless I understand it now, how am I going to invest in it? You know, then I got to go trust somebody who says, oh yeah, I know AI, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. And it's really easy just to okay, say you figure it out. That's just not my style.
So you're building a base of knowledge, and then you think that at some point it's going to pay dividends in terms of...
It already has.
Right?
I mean, if you truly believe AI is going to change everything, how are you going to understand what people are doing to change everything unless you at least have a foundational understanding of it? Now, I'm not going to build a 1,000,000-layer neural network and try to change the world. I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to write a research paper and saying, here's why the lottery ticket approach works, and you can build smaller neural networks with less data and be more, resource efficient. But I can read that stuff and understand that when somebody says, okay, we're building this project and we need this size data set or this size data set, or we need this amount of resources, I can ask questions and understand the answers.
I started my first business when I was 12. I was buying and selling baseball cards, buying and selling stamps. Anything I could do to make money, I was hustling and trying to do. So I was into business, but I not so much where it was all my friends were into it with me, so they wouldn't know.
Baseball cards.
Yeah, baseball cards, you name it. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh. And so I would, probably even less than 12 years old, I would, go out and buy a bunch of baseball cards that I collected. And I would package, I would say, okay, you're guaranteed to have a Pittsburgh Pirate in this package. And I would charge 3 times as much. And I'd set up on this park bench down in the park down in Scott Township where I grew up. And I'd have these little sales. And it was great. I made money, and I mean, it was, and I learned as much about business when I was 9, 10, and 12 as I learned any other time.
I describe myself as a grinder. I just, like we talked about learning, that's a grind, but I love it, and I think I've just learned what I'm good at and learned to focus on those things and try to, utilize those skills to now, not just be an entrepreneur, but probably more often now invest in and help other entrepreneurs.
We live in a day and age where you can start anything, do anything, and you shouldn't put limits on yourself. I think everybody's here because they don't believe there are limits on themselves and that they can get out there and do anything. And I like to point to myself, look, if I can do it, there's a lot more people out there that can do it, and you guys should never let anything hold you back.
Don't stop looking for a job now, right? Just because things are difficult doesn't mean, that there's not opportunity there, because all it takes is one. If you grind it out and you continue to be persistent, whether it's emailing, calling, setting up on seminars, whatever it may be, however you can connect with people, applying for jobs, wherever, however, do it. Every no gets you closer to a yes, and all it takes is that one opportunity to propel you to where you look to be. And, and I guess adding to that, again, like I said earlier, there's so many new things going on. When I came out of college way back when, was the last time that unemployment was in double digits. My friends, I remember reading a story. I went to Indiana University talking about how the unemployment rate in northern Indiana was 20%. And, my friends were freaked out like kids are today. And I had to be mobile, right? I had to go from Indiana back to Pittsburgh, my home, down to Dallas, in order to really get to a job that I could platform. And so as you look for these things, you really have to be more adventurous, if you will, and be more mobile and be more flexible and agile. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't have to get the best job. You don't have to get a perfect job. You just have to get a job. And now all of a sudden you're getting paid to learn, and you can platform that just like an NBA free agent, right? They might spend 1 year or 2 years at one team, build their skill set to get better and go to a better situation. Looking and finding a job, looking and finding an internship, looking and building your skill set to prepare yourself for what comes next. There's no better opportunity than now.
You're talking, alluding to it earlier about entrepreneurs being born or built, and I think I knew I was wired to be excited about business. How or why, I don't know, but and there's certain guys that have the genetics to jump out of the gym, right? There's certain guys, that, when they golf, they have the muscle memory and the discipline. Dirk Nowitzki may not be the most talented guy in the NBA, but his discipline and his focus to do what's necessary to be successful, he's willing to do, and combine it with being 7 feet tall and being skilled, it makes him an amazing basketball player. So it's understanding what your skill set is, finding the right place to use those skills, and then going for it. Will that make you 250 grand? It depends if you pick the right industry. But whatever industry you pick, if you outwork everybody, if you try to be a little smarter than everybody, if you try to be a better salesperson than everybody, if you try to be better prepared than everybody, you've got your best chance. Because if you don't do it and somebody else does, I have the saying, work like someone's trying to take it all away from you. I actually work like someone's spending 24 hours, working 24 hours to take it all away from you. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Do you think there's a proven formula that if a brand rookie guy, he's got a lot of ambition, he's got a lot of desire, but not a lot of knowledge and how to, do you think if he follows a formula, he's guaranteed to make it as an entrepreneur?
No.
Okay, so you don't believe there's a guarantee to make it?
No, because who knows who you're going to be competing with. So if you put two people both following the same formula, both in the same industry, right, which one wins? Maybe they both can win and both be successful, but so I don't think there's a default template for success, but I think there's things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to succeed. So I talk about stuff in the book. I talk about the one thing in business you can control is effort. Going out there and sales, curing all. So I think and I agree with your point that there are things that if you do them, you put yourself in the best position to succeed. But if you just walk into a buzzsaw and somebody else is doing them a little bit better, it happens.
I'm relentless. I'm the guy. I remember my first company, Micro Solutions. I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and we did system integration, and I wrote software. I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and that ribs I would just eat as I would write software, and I'd be there, and all of a sudden it'd be 36 hours later, or I'd lose track of days just because I just get so focused and so involved in it. That's what I do, and I still, I read the Hadoop manual and learned a little bit about Pig Latin, and I just want to keep up, right? And so that's probably my biggest strength.
You have lived your life as an iconoclast, and in a way that's a template for other people, but in a way it isn't. So in other words, how much, you've got an ordinary person, ordinary man or woman, how much of an iconoclast could you or should you be like Mark Cuban?
Oh, I don't care. You should just be yourself, right? I take pride in the fact that I didn't give a shit what anybody thought or said. I was just going to be myself, and I'm my dad's son, I'm my mom's son, I'm my brother's brother, I'm Alexis, Alyssa, and Jake's father, Tiffany's husband. I just try to do the best like everybody else. I've been blessed. Like I say all the time, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I just try not to take it for granted. I try to enjoy every minute, and I think now as I've gotten a little bit older, I try to give a little bit more back than I have before, and try to help more people. And in terms of whatever, if anybody else finds themselves in my position, just enjoy the moment, enjoy every minute of it.
I guess my question is, are you a role model for people in society?
I don't know. I never thought of it. It's not something I try to be. I just try to be myself. I just try to help where I can, do what I can, be a good dad, and I'm not trying to be something for somebody else, just myself.
You've got to go to AFWorks to see our AFWork team. You just got to meet some of our Spark Tank finalists. What advice would you give them on innovation and how to take it forward?
Learn from what you saw up here. The brilliance of each and every one of those ideas is that someone saw a problem. And let me add, all of us have had ideas that we thought were going to be the next great thing, right? We get that feeling in our stomach, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you talk about it with your friends or who you work with, and they say, what a great idea. And then most of us stop. What you saw up here and what made it so compelling is that they didn't stop. There weren't complicated solutions, right? Some of them were advanced technologically or they were super smart, but they were simple in that they just took basic problems and they tried to solve them. There's nothing, that's something each and every one of us can do. And so the best advice that I can give you is do it. When you have that idea, when you have that opportunity, do it, because that's what separates the people just separates the entrepreneurs or the intrapreneurs from everybody else. They just took that first step. Don't be afraid, take that first step. What's the worst thing that can happen?
I'd like to talk a little bit about failure. You've had some, and famously, I think were fired from early jobs, right, which forced you to be an entrepreneur. Were there any failures that, in hindsight, were just super valuable and like set you on the path? Yeah.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, I mean, I learned more from the places I got fired from and the places I worked that I hated than I did from the places I liked. I learned what not to do. I got fired because I went to close a sale instead of opening up a retail store and sweeping the floor, yada, yada, thinking that when I brought back a check from a closed deal, he would be all excited, and he fired me. I learned from that sales cures all. That company was out of business not much later.
Yeah.
And, it just taught me so many lessons about how to deal with things, how to treat people, what to focus on. And that led to, me getting started, and also taught me that, when I was living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, I had nothing to lose, nothing, right? And so being young was a perfect time to start a business, because what was my downside? We take in a 7th roommate, it's just like, and so, there's so much I learned from the places where things on the surface seemed to go wrong, but I learned what not to do, and sometimes that's just as important as what you do.
Generally speaking, Mark, as we kind of wind things up here, you have lived your life as an iconoclast, and in a way that's a template for other people, but in a way it isn't. So in other words, how much, you got an ordinary person, ordinary man or woman, how much of an iconoclast could you or should you be like Mark Cuban?
Oh, I don't care. You should just be yourself, right? I mean, I take pride in the fact that I didn't give a shit what anybody thought or said. I was just going to be myself, and I'm my dad's son, I'm my mom's son, I'm my brother's brother, I'm Alexis, Alyssa, and Jake's father, and Tiffany's husband. I just try to do the best like everybody else. I mean, I've been blessed. Like I say all the time, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I just try not to take it for granted. I try to enjoy every minute. And I think now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I try to give a little bit more back than I have before, and try to help more people. And in terms of whatever, if anybody else finds themselves in my position, just enjoy the moment, enjoy every minute of it.
I mean, I guess my question is, are you a role model for people in society?
I don't know. I mean, I never thought of it. I mean, it's not something I try to be. I just try to be myself. I just try to help where I can, do what I can, be a good dad, and I'm not trying to be something for somebody else, just myself. Got to be great at something. It's not just about being good and doing your job and getting through the day and not creating any problems. It's about what can you be great at, and that's where the effort comes in. Now, you're not going to just be able to pick and choose and be great at it. I couldn't be great at basketball or hockey or a lot of different things, right? So you got to try as many different things, because like I said before, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. You just got to be right one time. That's it, one time. So if you're busting your ass in the mailroom and that ain't it, what are you doing at night? What do you do in the weekends? What can you make that you can sell to other people? What is it that you can buy that you can sell to other people? What is it you can sell online? What is it what service that you can offer? Can you go and teach Alexa how to do skills and go door to door? Whatever it is, you've got to find that one thing you can be great at, build a business around that, bust your ass, and it's possible.
Do you have a favorite Shark Tank behind the scenes story? Like, is there some?
Oh, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. Most of the time, so Shark Tank, when you come on, they might last anywhere from 30 minutes for a stupid deal to 60 to 90 minutes. So in real time, they go on forever, and a lot gets edited out. And there's just times, particularly Lori, where she'll say something and didn't realize that it's completely inappropriate. And so, because she just doesn't think that way. And so it's a complete double entendre. And so one time, she'll kill me for saying this. So one time we had a vitamin company, and I hate vitamin companies on Shark Tank because they make all these claims, any supplements, right? And so they came on, and it was spray, and the guy's sitting there, and he goes, a lot of people have problems swallowing vitamins, pills, right? So we created this spray. She goes, I have no problem swallowing, and we just died the minute, because guys don't understand. And then, her husband's back in the back laughing, and then it dawned on her what she had just said. So just those types of moments, or Barbara, you know, or Kevin too. Kevin, you know, we like to pick on Kevin a lot because he's kind of a one-trick pony with royalties and licensing, you know, but there's times when he's got a really great heart and he tells great stories.
Innovate, be agile, because we're all going through a reset. And, you know, like I say all the time, we're going to look back in 10, 15 years, and there's going to be 5, 10, 20, 50 companies that are world-class game changers that were created because of this pandemic. Why can't it be you? Why can't it be your company? Why can't you change the game? You know your competitors are struggling as well. And even if you're competing with larger companies who maybe can work on smaller margins, or maybe you can work on smaller margins because you're lean and mean, they're worried about protecting their legacy businesses. You know, they can't be as agile as a small business can. And that's the other point I'm making. Innovate. And that innovation doesn't have to come from the top. Again, when you're talking to your customers, when you're talking to your employees who may be talking more to your customers, ask them for ideas on how you would do things differently. Because every CEO, every entrepreneur goes through that thought process prior to all this where they say, if I only had the time, I would do A, B, or C. If I only had the time, I would redo my marketing materials, my website, whatever. If I only had the time, I would redo my supply chain. Or if I only had the time, I have all these new ideas I'd like to try. Now you have the time. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to be agile. Now's the time to innovate. You know, one of my favorite sayings is when you run with the elephants, there's the quick and the dead. And now you got to be really, really quick because the elephants can't run at all. They can't dance. And so this is a unique time, a unique opportunity.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Mark Cuban, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I have all these stupid little sayings that I tell myself all the time or tell employees or whatever. And one of them is the one thing in life that you can control is your effort. And I always work my ass off. Always.